Hello, Vikram. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Seema, for having me. It's a real honor and real pleasure.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited and I'm looking forward to our conversation. So, congratulations on the
Thank
success of this book, Kamala Harris and the Rise of Indian Americans. Now, you have contributed to the entertainment and Indian Americans. The chapter is, I must say, is articulate and descriptive. You're a really, really good writer.
Thank you.
So tell me, how did this come about? Like, how did you get involved with the book?
So this is really interesting how I got involved, actually. I am by no means a professional author or anything like that. It's been a hobby. I've loved movies ever since I was a kid. And a couple of years ago, I started writing movie reviews for a online South Asian news portal. And one day, the editor of that reached out to me and said, there's a book being written on the rise of Indian Americans and Kamala Harris, and there's a need for an author to write about Indian Americans entertainment. Would you be interested? I said, that'd be great. That's something that I've followed very closely. And he connected me to Tarun Basu, who's the editor of the book. And I spoke to Tarun. We connected really well. And the book project just took off from there.
Wow, nice. Now that we have so many Indian Americans in the entertainment industry, right? It must have been really hard for you to pick just a few. I was wondering, like, you can literally write a whole book on just the South Asians in entertainment, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So please share with our listeners who all are in your chapter and what made you pick these.
You're right. It was a big challenge. With any book, you write a draft and then it gets edited and fixed. And my earlier drafts were much, much longer because this is a great story. It's a story with so many people who have contributed. There's a lot of people who've been involved in entertainment, which many, are known. There are some who are not as well known, but who are equally as important. So for me, it was a challenge to cut that down. But who I've spoken about are people such as actor Kal Penn, director M. Night Shyamalan, comedian and actress Mindy Kaling, comedian and actor Aziz Ansari, choreographer Joy Akazi. These are just some of them. I speak about other people as well that are both in front of the camera and behind the camera, and not just in film, but also in dance and production and all kinds of different spaces. So how I picked these people were that these were people that have really shifted what the narrative of Indian Americans has been in entertainment. So, without divulging too much about the chapter, it's been a big transformation where at one point Indian Americans they didn't get major roles, they had side roles, they were depicted a certain way. But these people are the ones that really brought them onto the map of, I would say, assimilation. And also they showed them as the normal part of American society, which every different community is. America is a melting pot of so many different cultures and communities, and that's what makes it what it is. And so these people played their roles as part of that fabric. And there was a shift in terms of, showing them deliberately as Indians, and they were shown as just normal and just part of everyday life. So I thought that these people really brought that to the fore, and that's why I focused on them.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. Nowadays, we are seeing a lot of that. Like Dev Patel in Modern Love. Remember that series on Amazon Prime? Nowhere it's mentioned that he's brown, right?
Right, exactly.
Even in Charles Dickens.
Exactly. And Dev Patel is a very interesting example also because he recently did a movie, David Copperfield, which is, as you mentioned, that's the Charles Dickens book, but he played, the main character there. And there was no reference to, the fact that he's, British Indian or anything like that. And that's really cool because that's what the world is. We're all in it. We're all in it together.
And I think, again, Priyanka Chopra, everyone knows her. Even in Quantico, there's no mention of Indian brown or any of
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
true
Yeah.
assimilation. There's no
Right.
accents there. There's no
Right. Right.
reference of any curries. There's no racism.
Right.
There's just nothing. It's just clean. They're assimilated in the system of this
Exactly.
country, and we are all living this American life.
Exactly. And I would actually add to that that, even if, there was shown that they're Indians or something like that, that's perfectly okay. It's just the way that Hollywood has shown it in the past has been
Right.
very stereotypical, right? In my chapter, I talk a little bit about that, how Sabu, who was one of the first Indian actors in the US, he's not Indian American, he came from India, but he always played like, the Jungle Book type of Mowgli type of characters. And that's what people perceived
Yeah.
Indians were all about and what India was. So it's also how that is shown, which is important.
Yeah, so true. How it's shown. Not everyone is stereotypical, and that's okay too. We are okay showing the stereotypical too. But I
Yes.
think we had reached a point that we are like, we're done.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
done. You can continue showing that, but not just that.
There's so many films out there that have shown aspects of our culture and how things are done, that I think now it's time to show that we're beyond just the big Indian weddings and Bollywood dancing. There's more to us than that.
And now I understand that's why you picked the title of your chapter, right? From stereotypes to household names.
Absolutely. So I thought that this was a story that really needed to be told, because I think audiences of today, you turn on any TV show or even many movies, and you see an Indian American in there, and like I mentioned, that they have perfectly character driven roles, not ethnicity driven roles. But many of viewers today may not know that it's been a long journey to get here, and what the struggle has been has to be told. So I mentioned Sabu. Another aspect is that in the 80s, there was an Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. There was a James Bond movie.
Right.
And Kabir Bedi was in the James Bond movie. Amrish Puri was in the Indiana Jones movie. While on one level, it's amazing that these actors were in these big movies, the roles that they had were a little bit stereotypical. And in the case of Amrish Puri, it was pretty offensive because it showed him as a cult leader who rips out hearts, and there's monkey brains are being eaten and all that kind of stuff. So that was bad. And then another very interesting thing is, in the 1960s, there was a film called The Party, starring Peter Sellers.
Yeah, we've all seen it. We have all seen it.
Yes, and you probably remember that a very interesting part of that movie is that Peter Sellers played an Indian guy, and they painted him in brown face to play that role. So they didn't even try to get an actual Indian actor. They took a British person and they painted him brown, and then they had him play that Indian character. So that shows kind of where things were. And now, Kal Penn, with Harold and Kumar, and he's been on so many different movies and TV shows. M. Night Shyamalan, one of the most successful directors, Mindy Kaling, Mindy Project, Aziz Ansari, Master of None. I mean, such a big shift.
And the Disney movie, and of course, never ever have I now Devi like a teenager.
Yes.
See, earlier, I think there were two things. We weren't putting ourselves out there. We weren't like going out and actually anticipating that there is a possibility that we can be a face in a movie. One thing. Second is we didn't have any role models. We didn't have anyone to look up to. Oh, if this person could do it, I could do it. There wasn't anyone. There was no pin-up calendars like that.
Right.
So so these guys paved the way for all of us.
Absolutely, they did. And another aspect of that, which I haven't touched upon too much in the chapter, but it is important to discuss, is the reason that there may not have been too much of us is not only because there weren't that many opportunities, but in our culture in the past, we had very specific career paths, right, that we could go down, medicine and engineering and law and those kinds of things, right? So entertainment was never a career that we were encouraged to go down. But, as families, came and they saw and learned a lot more things about different fields, they begin to appreciate the arts a lot more. And, it's really because of families recognizing that and encouraging that the people who are successful today have gotten there, because there's been a shift in that mindset. And families have realized that this is a very respectable profession that impacts so many people and brings joy to so many people. And that's been so important.
And I also think as Indians, we do have as culture and as our genes, we are talented. There is a reason Bollywood comes after Hollywood. How huge is that? Because we have the talent. There's so many talented people in India, come dancing, come singing, come acting, filmmaking. So we have that in our gene. We did that in our country. And here people are like, oh, we came here to live the American dream, not for you to become an actor, maybe a computer science, a doctor. I think people who came in the 60s and 70s really had that mindset, Right.
And, that's the beauty of the American dream, actually, is that, all the actors that have, become successful have proven that theory that you can come here and you can achieve success in whatever you want. And your point about, it being in our genes is a really interesting one, because India has one of the oldest film industries in the world. It has the largest film industry in the world. In the early 1900s is when the first Indian film was made. And that was such a fascinating achievement. I think it was Dada Saheb Phalke who made it.
Yeah.
But, that's been so important. But in the middle, it was kind of dusted away. But luckily, it's reemerged as a great thing of pride for the community.
It is. It absolutely is. So how do you view the evolution of Indian Americans in entertainment today? What has driven Indian Americans to succeed in this field?
Right. So on one level, it is the one thing that I mentioned about the parents understanding and encouraging that.
Right.
But I think that, in addition to that, Indian American actors actually have been coming for many, many years. It's just the substantial roles were not available earlier, and now they are. Now, when people see, even in a small role, representation, it's a source of inspiration. It's a source of recognition that our community is there being represented. And I think that all of the generations of actors that have come now, and since before, they've seen this representation increase slower and slower and slower, because more people took risks to follow their dreams and follow this path. And that inspired them to continue to go down this path. And I think that that's what's really been a driver, is having those role models, as you mentioned, having the encouragement, and then, of course, having the sheer will and determination to do what you want to do, and the belief in the dream of doing what you want to do. And more roles are being written. There's more directors that are exploring new themes, new genres. All this has contributed to this growth.
And now is the time. If you have the dreams, now is the time. Everyone, especially after BLM, I think that everyone wants the diversity and the inclusion.
And, in addition to television and cinema, we have online streaming now. So many different streaming platforms. So it's a great time for not just Indian American actors, but actors of all ethnicities and actors in general, because there's so many opportunities. They don't have to worry about whether they're going to become a star or not, whether they're commercially viable. They just need to be good in what they do, and they will succeed and grow.
So as I brought up earlier, we have many more, right? So let's use this platform, my platform, to shine a light on some more Indian Americans who are out there in Hollywood or entertainment and rocking the scene. And I'll start with a few. Okay, let's play it like a game. And you can keep adding.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll start with some of my guests. One of them is Siddhartha. He's the music composer for This Is Us, the show on NBC.
Amazing.
Right? And he's Emmy nominated twice. Then to top it, all of them is Sawan Kotecha. He's the songwriter, top songwriter in Hollywood, and you Google him and you will be shocked the kind of songs that you tune into every day that he has written it. So another friend of mine is Sunil Malotra. He's a voiceover actor in lots of top games. Yeah. And of course, there's many more, but you can add a few more. Like
Absolutely. Someone who I actually look at as a great role model is Mr. Anjul Nigam. So Mr. Anjul Nigam, I would say, is one of those pioneering actors who really was an inspiration for people like Kal Penn and many of the people who are there today. Mr. Nigam started in films and television and all that. And today he's a very successful producer. He's producing films with Alec Baldwin and working with a lot of big stars like Cuba Gooding Jr. and Thomas Jane. And one particularly noteworthy film that he did, which he also wrote and produced and acted in, was Growing Up Smith, which came out a couple of years ago. Amazing movie. But in addition to Mr. Nigam, there's so many people. There's Rizwan Manji and Manish Dayal and Sendil Ramamurthy and so many. The list is quite expansive, but all of these people are amazing.
Of course, it would be incomplete if we don't mention Angela Acharya Bhatt, because she saw the dream. It was her vision. It was interesting. And when I met her, I think 2012, she told me a little bit of her story she grew up in UK, and she used to think about that, how, as I mentioned earlier, there's no role models to look up to. And she used to think, oh, I wish there was somebody who was out there in the industry of Indian ascent. And then when she came to the US and then she saw Priyanka, she's thinking, oh, she's fabulous. She could in the US. I wish she could sing. And then a couple of years down the line, she heard her singing. So she's like, I literally took the next flight and left. And the rest is history.
Amazing.
So manages people like her, people who see the talent and put everything that they have in promoting and helping them get out there, because they're not artists, but they are helping those artists see the light of the day.
Absolutely. You're right. I mean, and I've only mentioned primarily, actors and stuff like that, but it's all fields, right?
All fields.
It's behind the scenes. There's so many people. You mentioned some songwriters and Grammy winners, and all that is there. All that's producers, all that is there.
Producers.
It's really, really amazing to see.
And then there's so many that, that are not talked about. They just kind of stay hiding,
Yeah.
They just do their job and come back. A lot of times I see Indian names in the end credits.
Right. And so that's what I'm hoping my chapter does. Is I know it doesn't mention everyone. It's hard to mention everyone, but I'm hoping that when readers see it, they become curious to see who else is there. Because there's so many talented people who have done great work and are doing great work. And I think everyone deserves even more recognition.
And that's exactly what made me think. That's why I brought this up. Oh my God, these are just to name a few. There's so many. Everyone can be fitted in one chapter, but there is so many. And it's so encouraging for our youngsters.
Absolutely.
So, but what do you want to say, Vikram, overall about the book and the other contributors, and why everyone should be looking out and reading the book?
Sure. Well, about the book and the contributors, it's a very esteemed panel of experts and leaders and trailblazers themselves in their respected fields, who have great insights about the story of the Indian American community. And for so many years, people have talked about, the Indian American community and how well it's done and how much it's progressed, but there hasn't been any sort of tomb that explains that. And so this volume really brings that out with lots of great stories, lots of insights, firsthand accounts, and it's from very credible people. And I think it's a cause for celebration for our community and for all communities to see how people have achieved the American dream in many different fields, or their dreams in many different fields. And I think that that's a story worth reading. That's a story worth telling. And I think readers will really, really enjoy that and celebrate.
Amazing. When you see that they've been there, done that, and they set that up for us, and those are the different times when in 80s and 90s, early 2000, we have so much more now, for us to help us succeed.
Right.
Oh,
I was
sorry.
saying it is important to mention that, with every community, one should definitely celebrate the success of the community, but it should also not be viewed as, there's something called the model minority myth, right? Which is that, okay, well, this is the Indian American community and every single person is successful and there's no challenges. No, there are people in the community that still face challenges. And, for those of us who have done well, we need to use that to contribute more to our communities and other communities to help those whom are in need. And so it should not be looked at as every single person is successful. There are many that have contributed and there are many that need our help as well. So we need to address both these fronts as we move forward.
And for all the communities,
for all the communities.
Absolutely. Because that's our responsibility. If we have achieved something in life, then we got to give it back to the not even just the next generation, to people around us. Mm-hmm. So that's great. And as I mentioned, Vikram is a film critic. And so I can't let him go without discussing some films and just some fun stuff. So we'll have a little rapid fire questions, and I'm sure everybody will enjoy this and ready to take notes. So tell me, what movies in 2020 and 2021 touched you, inspired you, enjoyed?
Well, because of the pandemic, I definitely watched a lot of stuff. This is where the critic in me comes out. I found very few things that actually touched me or inspired me, but I think things that I really enjoyed were, recently there was a movie called Mimi, which came out on Netflix.
I loved it.
That was really a wonderful movie.
Yeah, totally.
There was a movie that came out last year on Netflix, another Bollywood movie called Ludo, with Abhishek Bachchan and Pankaj Tripathi and Rajkumar Rao. That was a wild, wacky, crazy ride. I loved that movie. I think that was my favorite movie of last year. I love commercial movies, Bollywood and Hollywood. So there's a sci-fi movie that came on Amazon recently called The Tomorrow War with Chris Pratt. I loved that. There's been a lot of television actually. Or
share with us, because people have Hulu as well, and we are always looking for good content. You know how we spend more time looking for a movie or a show than watching it. Right. So this might help our listeners.
I think if The Family Man with Manoj Bajpayee on Amazon, that's an amazing show. It's about a secret agent type of character, but it shows his professional life and his personal life, and how his personal life is just as normal as anyone else. And on the other hand, he's fighting terrorists and things like that. So it's quite quirky, quite funny. I really liked that. I love supernatural stuff. So on Netflix, there's a show called The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is a modern adaptation of a very famous book called The Turning of the Screw. Mm. So it's a modern adaptation of that. It's horror is the base, but it's not actually a horror show once people watch it. So don't get scared, viewers. If you don't like horror, you should watch it either way. There's a show called Breathe Into the Shadows with Abhishek Bachchan, which was pretty good. It's a thriller. These are some of the ones that come to mind immediately. I love sci-fi. There's the show The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, which is a Star Wars spinoff. That show is actually very good as well. These I thought were some good things that I watched during the pandemic.
Okay. And your all-time favorite actors and filmmakers?
So this I would break into two categories, Bollywood and Hollywood.
Absolutely.
So in Bollywood, I'd say my all-time favorite actors are Shah Rukh Khan, number one. Shah Rukh Khan is number one.
Join the gang.
Join the gang. I like Amir Khan a lot as well. I think Govinda was also amazing. Of course, Amitabh Bachchan, Dilip Kumar. These people, I think, were really... Akshay Khanna, actually, a very underrated actor. Akshay Khanna. These are my favorite Bollywood actors. Bollywood filmmakers, I loved Raj Kapoor's movies. I love Sanjay Leela Bhansali's movies, Rajkumar Hirani, Farhan Akhtar, Zoya Akhtar. These are my favorite Bollywood filmmakers. Hollywood, I think Sean Penn is a brilliant actor, Daniel Day-Lewis, Harrison Ford, Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, I'd say. And directors, I think Steven Spielberg is my all-time favorite.
Any new ones?
Any newer directors?
Newer directors and newer actors.
Newer directors, newer actors. I think Ryan Gosling's a pretty good actor.
Yeah.
I know he has a different reputation amongst female fans, but he's actually also a very good actor. Leonardo DiCaprio is an amazing actor. Jennifer Lawrence is a brilliant actress. There's so many. Margot Robbie is a great actress. I think these people are
and the younger Indian actors like Alia Bhatt kinds.
Yeah. So Alia Bhatt she's an amazing performer, brilliant performer. I actually think that of the current generation of actresses, she's the best, I think, in my opinion, as an actress. I think growing up, though, I think Madhuri Dixit and Juhi Chawla and Kajol and stuff were people that I admired. But yeah, Alia Bhatt, I think, number one.
So, what kind of films and shows you would like to see in coming years?
Yeah, so I would love to see big commercial movies with an Indian American lead. So what I mean by that is I'd love to see like an Indian James Bond. I would love to see an Indian superhero in Hollywood. I'd love to see that kind of stuff. That would, I think, be really, really amazing. If we look at Marvel movies, for example, we've seen great diversity, right? With Shang-Chi just coming out recently, with Black Panther, and I think we need like a solo standalone kind of South Asian or Indian American superhero as well. It is exciting, though, that in this new movie Eternals, where there's several different superheroes, comedian Kumail Nanjiani is one of the superheroes. So that's very exciting. I think the next step is a solo movie with a South Asian superhero.
So what's stopping us? Let's manifest it today.
Yeah. So if any directors, writers are listening to this or watching this, let's write the script and get that dream realized.
And let's manifest it. Let's put it out
there.
In the universe, that visualize that we are sitting on big screen and the movie starts and bingo.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. Just reminded me of something when I interviewed Siddharth Khosla a year ago. And I asked him, what do you want to see in 2025? And you know what he said? That he says he sees Kamala Harris as a president.
Hey.
4 months later, she was at least vice president.
Yeah. Well, even having her as a vice president is such a huge thing.
Huge.
Right? This book is really a testament to saying that the sky is the limit.
That's a beautiful thought to end this part of the show. And thank you so much, Vikram. I really had a great time chatting with you. The time just flew.
This was so much fun. I've admired all of your interviews. So for me, it was a real honor to speak to you about this. Thank you for reading the book, and thank you for your encouragement and your contributions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying nice things about the show. I put my heart and soul and everything I got in my shows, and I enjoy doing this. So
absolutely. And that's what makes you such an amazing host.
Oh, thank you, Vikram. Makes my day.
Would love it if you click on the like and subscribe button below. I bring positive stories from celebrities and philanthropists from around the world, and stay updated with all things fab on my Fab Life 360 Instagram page. Also, if you are looking for something fun and inspiring to listen to, find my podcast Fab Life 360 on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.